Hey, Magic fans, welcome back. This is your captain speaking here on Captain Clyde's MTG, and we're back for more spoilers for March of the Machines, or MOM, as people like to call it. According to the list, everything has been spoilered after this. Spoiled, has been spoiled after this, so we'll have to wait and see. But according to most things I've seen, we got 271 of 271, so this is everything after this. Spoiler season came in hot and heavy, but we'll have to wait and see if more stuff comes out. We got leaks in advance, so some of those cards are already previewed. That may be why we've already seen them all. But if there's more to be spoiled, I'll definitely let you know. And after today, if there's not any more, we're going to start hitting up Commander because there was some goodies in there. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Help support the channel. Let's get into it. We've got quite a few to cover. So, starting off first, we have the Elegant Denial. 2 blue and 4 instant has Convoke, counter target spell. Draw 2 cards, then discard a card. You can do both if you want. Um, this is not good. I mean, fine for limited. Blue's not known for its convoking because it normally doesn't play a lot of creatures, so it's probably gonna see a lot of limited play probably at best. Next we have Into the Fire. That's right. Red and 2. Choose one. Deals 2 damage to each creature, planeswalker, and battle. Notice the word there, battle. So you can hit those siege cards up and put any number of cards from your hand on bottom of your library, then draw that many cards plus 1. Pretty nice sorcery. Might not see a whole lot of play. There's other cards that do things that are very similar to this, and an instant speed. But it might be good for a combo deck in Pioneer Brawlish. A little something extra for Commander, maybe. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Next, we have Closed Circuit. Blue and 5 instant with Convoke. You may cast sorcery spells this turn as though they had flash. Interesting. When you cast your next instant sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell twice. You may choose new targets. The bad thing about this, again, you need blue stuff to Convoke with. Because since it's 6 mana, it says copy the spells. The next one you cast, you still have to pay to cast it. So now I'm sure there's plenty of shenanigans with free casting in this card, which will probably give it a little bit of a home, but probably at best just a couple bucks. And probably Commander only. Next we have Shivan Tree Torture. Very nice. Kind of a Shivan Dragon. 2 red and 5, a flying haste 4/4 with Convoke. This would be okay, but I just don't think it's going to see a whole lot of play. There's not enough red creatures to make this convocable for a cheap enough cost. Because you'd have to convoke this down to pay 3 mana to make it relative or 4. And to do that, you're going to have to tap 3 creatures. It's just, you're asking a lot. Probably going to see some play in limited. That probably going to be about it. Next, we have the Fearless Scald, red and 4 Dwarf Berserker, backup 1 with Double Strike, which is pretty sweet. Because the backup 1 means you can make this for 5 mana a 4/3 Double Striker, or this is a 3/2 Double Striker, and the +1/+1 goes onto another creature, and that creature gains Double Strike. So definitely got to be a high valued card, probably in the limited format. Next we have Invasion of Moog. Is that how you say that? Moog. Anyway. White, green, and 2, you get a siege battle for 5. When it enters the battlefield, play +1/+1 counter each creature you control. Not the best. But if you do manage to kill this thing once it's on the battlefield, you get to flip it and cast a 3/3 Ward 2 at the beginning of your end step. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Probably okay for limited, but it's probably not going to do much more outside of that. Just doesn't have the power. Next, we have the Ravenous Sailback, a green 4 and 4 colorless for a 3/4. That when it enters the battlefield, you get to choose one. It gains haste at the end of turn, or destroy an artifact or enchantment. Again, great limited card. A lot of limited cards here. Next, we have Streetwise Negotiator. A little Streets of New Capenna action going on. Green N1 for an O2 with backup 1. This creature assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So this is interesting. This probably won't see a whole lot of play in standard, maybe limited if you got the right kind of setup going on. But in Commander, for those butt fight decks, This is a thing. All right, next we have Ramazian Greatsword, red and 4 colorless, has Convoke. Equipped creature gets +3/+1 and has Trample. Equips for 2. Um, Limited at best. It just doesn't do a whole lot for me. I just don't see it being a thing. Next we have the Invasion of Segovia. So, I forget what plane this is. Yeah, beat me up in the comment section. Anyway, for a blue and 2, you get a battle of 4. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 blue Kraken creature tokens with trample. 2 1/1s with trample. That's funny. This reminds me of Keldheim. I think it says Keldheim. Anyway, if you do manage to kill this thing, you get a 3/3 that says non-creature spells you cast have Convoke, and at the beginning of your end step, untap up to 4 target creatures. That's not bad. Um, the This may be a standard deck with Convoke and what have you, because you're getting creatures and you untap your creatures, you can cast counter spells for free while still it's really weird. We'll have to wait to see what this thing does. I'm just not seeing it. Next we have the Invasion of Kaladesh. Oh, the good old bulb of boom. Anyway, so for red, this is a pretty good siege. Wow, red and blue only. 4 power siege. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. So in 4 turns, you can trigger it. If it flips, you get an Aetherwing Golden Scale Flagship. Boy, that's a mouthful. This legendary artifact has a star 4. It's flying. Its power is equal to the number of artifacts you control, and it only crews for 1. This is very interesting. We're going to have to see where this goes. I mean, definitely Commander and some artifact decks, but I don't think it's going to be too much of a thing in most decks. Now we have Storm the Seed Core. 2 green and 2 sorcery. Distribute 4+1/+1 counters among up to 4 target creatures you control. Creatures you control gain vigilance and trample till end of turn. Limited at best. Wah, wah. Next we have Notvold Hermit, a green and 3 for a 4/4, good rate for an uncommon. If you feel like playing a blue and 5 or 2 life and 5, you can transform him into a 5/5 that whenever he attacks, up to one other target creature has base power 5/5 till end of turn. This is going to be an amazing card for limited. And might even see a little mono green play in Pioneer, because they can just make everything just huge, like, elves and stuff. But at the end of the day, probably just limited. Next we have Hikitsu and Korari. Wow, look at that combo. So, here we have a black 2 blue and 2 5 mana for a 5/4 flyer. When they enter the battlefield, you draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. So it's a 5/4 flying brainstorm. That also apparently, when it dies, exile top card of your library. Target opponent loses life equal to its mana value. If it's an instant or sorcery card, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. So this looks like a lot of shenanigans, but at the same time, I can see this being very broken. Definitely going to be a great card for limited, just because of 5/4 for 5 lets you brainstorm. It flies is phenomenal. Standard and other formats, probably not. Commander, I could definitely see us getting a little Commander action. All right, we have Doomskar Warrior. So this 2 green and 2 human warrior is a 4/3, has trample, has backup 1, which means you can make it a 5/4 with trample for 4, which is pretty good. Or make it a 4/3 with trample and make something else +1/+1 bigger and give it trample. And also, when this creature deals combat damage to a player or battle, look at that many cards from the top of your library. Reveal a creature or land card from among them, put it in your hand, rest on the bottom in a random order. This is going to be a mono green or green splash all-star in standard and limited. This just seems really good for the rate, plus the ability to get stuff out of your deck. This just seems to check all the boxes, and not too shabby for a little Pioneer action mono green deck with a little bit of color pieage. Anyway, moving on. Next we have the Blood Feeder Phoenix. It's a red and one for a 2/2 flyer. That's great. It can't block. Still a good rate. Whenever an instant or sorcery spell you control deals combat damage to opponent or battle, you may pay 1 red. If you do, return the Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste till end of turn. This is going to be a very popular card in Red Rush. It's not legendary. Lots of direct damage. Plus it flies and it attacks if it goes to the graveyard. This seems amazing. This may even see some play in Arc like Phoenix style decks. Just because, I mean, if you're going to shock them anyway, for an extra red, get a 2/2 flyer out of the deck. I mean, probably not, but I would be surprised if one or two of these didn't creep into that deck as a backup plan. Moving on. Next, we have Knight Errant of Eos, a white and 4 for a 4/4 Convoker. That's pretty good. 5 for 4/4 is already good. If you convoke 1 or 2 creatures, it gets real cheap real quick. And when this thing enters the battlefield, look at the top 6 cards in your library. Reveal up to 2 creature cards, mana value X or less from among them, where X is the number of creatures that convoke this card. Put the revealed creatures into your hand. So this says white weenie all over it. I mean, on turn 3, you can convoke 3 creatures. You know, look at the top X, where it's 3 creatures and get stuff, more creatures to put in your hand, plus have a big nappy 4/4 on the battlefield. We're really going back to when we start getting into Convoke realms, we start getting into a lot of mono, fast, punch you in the face decks. Along with we're getting some combo decks in there as well. It's going to be an interesting standard. Ooh boy. Here we have Invasion of Von Azgol. So, if you guys didn't notice, this is not in English. My bad. Let me just Google that bad boy real quick for you. So, what this card actually does, let me see here from, oh wow, they did not translate this card. Alright, so, comes in for red and a black. I'm going to wing it. It's a battle for 4. When it enters the battlefield, it looks like it deals 1 damage to maybe a Planeswalker. You get a 2/1. This is very interesting. Well, here it is for all its glory and what it does, but it looks like at the end of your end step, it gets a +1/+1 counter of some kind when it's a creature. Who knows? Lazy people and then they're non-Googling stuff. Me. Anyway, so next we have Furnace Gremlin. So for 1 red and 1, you get a 1/2, not terrible. Phyrexian Gremlin, for a red and 1, he gets +1/+0 to end a turn. That makes him really good because he becomes big quick when you need to mana sink. And when he dies, you get to incubate X, where X is his power. So if you pump him up to a 5/2 and he dies, you get a creature that can be incubated as a 5/5 for 2 more mana. Seems like a decent trade. I'm not going to lie. Going to be great and limited, but that's probably about as far as it goes. Next we have Igna and Azika. Oh boy, this picture here, I'm telling you what. This, when I seen this card, I thought it was a joke. I thought somebody photoshopped this thing. And at one point, I'm like, man, we could have done better. At another point, I'm also proud of the fact that this is a Magic card because it's just hilarious. Anyway, so for a blue, green, and 2, you get a 4/4. That's a legendary creature, human god. All creatures you control have vigilance, and they tap for 1 mana of any color. Spend this only to cast creature spells, though, and whenever you cast a creature spell, if 3 or more mana from a creature was spent to cast it, draw a card. This is amazingly interesting. Because all your stuff has vigilance and taps for mana. This is definitely a combo that's going to make some very good decks, not only in Commander, maybe even Standard. But to be honest with you, with all the Convoke going around and all the monocolor stuff I think we're going to see, it's going to be hard for this thing to have legs. But who knows? Next we have Errant and Gaia. So a blue, white, and 1. We have Human Angels. 2/3 flash flyer, already good at that rate. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast spells with flash or flying from the top of your library. That's going to be amazing and limited, not to mention Commander, probably Standard as well. May even find a home in some of the internal formats just because it's only 3 mana And and spells with flash or flying. I mean, who knows? It could be a thing going on there. Like spirits or humans. Saying probably spirits. This will be the first human in a spirit deck because you just cast all your stuff from the top of your deck. Moving on. Sculpted Perfection, black, white, and 2. This is an enchantment that when it enters the battlefield, you get to incubate 2. And then Phyrexians you control get +1/+1. So basically, since you have to incubate and then use 2 more mana, basically for 6 mana, you get a 3/3. You get a 2/2 Phyrexian, and then you also get a +1/+1 to all Phyrexians. I don't think this is good. At best, it's limited. But even that, I think, is going to be a struggle. Next, we have City on Fire. So 3 red and 5. Thank God it's got Convoke. But it says it's an enchantment. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage instead. This should have been a mythic because this is going to get out of hand in mono red. Yeah, this is going to be a thing. Commander guys, calm down. I hear you hooting and hollering already. But yeah, they need to stop printing stuff like this. It just gets out of hand with the decks. And anyway, moving on. I won't go into a rant. We'll just go to the invasion of Urgamon. So green-red, cheap one. It has a battle of 5. When it enters the battlefield, you create a treasure token. Then you may discard a card if you do draw a card. So not terrible for red-green. Got a little, card selection, draw ability. Going to be great for limited. But if you do manage to kill it, you get a 3/4 Trampler. That when it enters the battlefield, you may discard a card. If you do, search your library for a land or battle card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So you could chain these back to back. Not that it's going to be the best creature in the world. But, I mean, we've got so many battles in this set. This could very easily make there could very easily be a siege battle commander deck. I know somebody's out there thinking it. Don't even look at me like that. Moving on. Next we have Deadly Diversion. Or Durision, whatever. 2 black and 2 instant destroy target creature or planeswalker. Create a treasure token. This is pretty good removal for a common. Gonna see limited play definitely, but that's probably gonna be about it. But still great. Next, you get the Beamtown Beatstick. Beamtown Beatstick. It's a crowbar. It's a giant crowbar. Anyway, 1 red. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has menace. That's pretty sweet. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player or battle, create a treasure token, equips for 2. I'm down with this. Definitely unlimited. I might even throw this in a couple standard decks. Who knows? This is some good stuff right here. Moving on. Next we have Tribute to the World Tree. Oh, I thought for a second that was the middle finger. Anyway, 3 green enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card if its power is 3 or greater. Otherwise, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. This is going to be real good for a mono green deck, which all the mono decks apparently are going to be a thing in some way, shape, or form. But also in Commander, not to mention mono green Devotion in Pioneer or whatever. Would love a little something like this bad boy to just draw through his deck plus feed that Devotion like crazy. Next we have the Sunblessed Guardian. For a white and 1, you get a 2/2. That's okay. Good on rate. For a red and 5 or 2 life and 5, you can transform him into a 3/3 that whenever he attacks, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of it. Put a +1/+1 counter on that token for each +1/+1 counter on the Blessed Conqueror. Sacrifice that token at the beginning of your next end step. Very interesting. Yeah, because if you put counters on this for some reason and then start making more, it gets bigger. It's very weird. Decent limited card, probably going to be that at best, just because it doesn't do a whole lot past that for 6. We got Golga, Monkey Time. Oh, excuse me. Ape, Big Ape. And Yadaro, the Turtle. So we have an ape dinosaur turtle. That's something new. So 2 green, 2 red, and 2 for a 7/7. When it enters the battlefield, you get to choose one. Gain trample and haste, or it fights target creature you don't control. And for 2 colorless, a red and green, discard Golga or Yadara, destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment. Shuffle it into your library from your graveyard, then draw a card. This thing is going to be amazing. This should be in every commander deck if you're playing red and green. because you get to draw a card, you get to kill something, you don't lose anything. This is going to be probably a pretty good card just in standard, just because of that ability as well. I mean, if it's early game, you can't cast it. Spend 4 mana, blow up an artifact, or an enchantment. Then draw a card. Who cares? Like, I think this is a pretty good card. I like it. Next, we have the Phyrexian Gargantua. So 2 black and 4 for a 4/4. Okay rate. When it enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards, lose 2 life. It's going to be a great limited card. But for the casting cost, it's probably going to be the best it's going to do, unless maybe somebody wants to slip it into a commander deck for some reason. Maybe a Phyrexian deck. I don't know. Next, we have Rend Inert. So a black and 2 sorcery. Remove up to 5 counters from target permanent. Draw a card. This is the thing. So this should have been a rare, because this can kill planeswalkers, take +1/+1 counters off things, and remove counters from battles, plus draw a card. This is going to be insane. I think this card is going to get highly overlooked until somebody busts it. But this is going to be a thing, guys. You don't have to believe me. It's definitely a thing in limited. It's going to be a thing in standard, and maybe some pioneer decks, depending on what kind of shenanigans we got going on with battles. Yeah, it's a thing. Deal with it. Next, we have Invasion of Muragranda. So for a green and 4, it has 6 counters when it comes in. You get to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then that creature fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Not the best, but if you do manage to flip it at the beginning of your combat on your turn, another target creature gets +2/+2 and loses all abilities till end of turn. That's very weird. Probably good for limited. Probably. Probably. So next we have the Harried Artisan. Red and 2 for a 2/3 with haste. Not terrible. If you want to transform it for a white or 2 life and 3, you can get a 3/4 flying with haste. Probably pretty good for a red-white deck, but nothing really to write home about. Probably just limited play. Invasion of Arcavios, if I even said that right. Probably butchered the hell out of it. But we're here at Strixhaven now. 2 blue and 3 for a 7. This must be a doozy. When this enters the battlefield, search your library, graveyard, and or outside the game for an instant or sorcery card that you own. Reveal it. Put it into your hand. If you search your library, shuffle. Not too bad. A little rough for 5 mana, but if it does manage to get flipped, it's an enchantment that whenever you cast instant or sorcery spell from your hand, you may copy that spell. You may choose new targets for that copy. It's going to be interesting to see if this starts showing up in those weird combo decks, because who knows? It might not be that hard to flip, depending on kind of shenanigans they're jumping off. Could be a sleeper. Next, we have Tandem Takedown. 2 green and 1 instant. Up to 2 target creatures you control get +1/+0 to end of turn. They each deal damage equal to their power to another target creature, planeswalker, or battle. Ooh. Another way to shoot down them battles. Yeah. Good for limited. Next, we have the Sandstalker Moloch. That is the most weirdest thing. Anyway, 2 green and 1 for a 4/2 with flash, because, okay. When it enters the battlefield, if an opponent casts a blue spell or a black spell this turn, look at the top 3 cards in your library. You may reveal a permanent card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom in random order. Decent limited card. May see some sideboard action just on the off chance. Probably nothing better than that, honestly. Next, we have the Invasion of Chandalar. Dun dun dun. And it's a mythic. Oh. So, 2 green and 3 for a battle of 4. When it enters the battlefield, return up to 3 target permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. That's pretty good for 5. I'm not going to lie. That's probably worth it. And if you manage to flip this bad boy at the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. Because now it's a Leyline Surge. And now it's busted. So people are going to find ways to get around this. This is going to be in Standard, Pioneer, Eternal, all kinds of shit. Anywhere somebody can figure out some shenanigans to flip this card and just go ham. Commander. Anyway, moving on. We have the Invasion of Lorwyn. Look at the elves doing their thing. So, black, green, and 4. You get a battle of 5. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target non-elf creature an opponent controls with power X or less, where X is the number of lands you control, which means probably 6. And that's pretty good. If you manage to flip this thing, you have Winnowing Forces. Its power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control. This seems really good for limited and probably commander. It's probably a bit much for standard, but depending on how the decks go, it might be okay. If we get into a big aggro style format, this ain't gonna cut it. Moving on. Next we have Arya, Widow of the Realm. 2 black and 1 for a 3/3. Great rate. Tap, sacrifice another creature or artifact. Widow of the Realm deals X damage to target opponent or battle, dun dun dun, and you gain X life, where X is the sacrifice permanent's mana value. This is a powerhouse. And for a red or 2 life and 5 colorless, you can transform it into a 4/4. Look at that sweet picture. Legendary creature Phyrexian Elf Noble. At the beginning of combat on your turn, return up to 1 target artifact or creature card from your graveyard to your battlefield. It gains haste, exile at the beginning of your next end step. This is nuts. Because if you flip this to this and then lay this, and you just start this shenanigans going on, whew, game's going to be over. This is going to be a powerhouse that people are going to see a lot of. Next we have Invasion of Alaria. Probably the one everybody's been waiting for. So we got a lot to read here, boys, so buckle up. So it's WUBRG, one of every color. It's a siege. It has 7. And when it enters the battlefield, you may exile cards from the top of your library until you exile 2 non-land cards, mana value 4 or less. You may cast one of them without paying its mana cost, put one of them in your hand, then put the rest of the cards under your library in a random order. Not too bad for 5 mana, little painbow action. And if you happen to flip this bad boy, you get to Awaken the Maelstrom, which is a sorcery that says it's all colors. Target player draws 2 cards. You may put an artifact card from your hand on the battlefield, create a token copy of target permanent you control, distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 target creatures you control, destroy target permanent and opponent controls. This ain't gonna see a whole lot of action, but in Commander and those Painbow decks, man, this is going to be sweet for probably the person casting it and nobody else involved. Just saying. But hey, we got one from Alaria. That's pretty sweet. And it looks like that is everything. I want to say thank you guys for sticking with me. This was a bit of a long one as well, but hey, we got through it and we've spoiled all the cards. And the only thing I want to say in conclusion to wrap it up is I am now officially pissed there was not a card of Sarkhan punching a Phyrexian in the face. That's not cool. Wizards, really, you let me down. It was right there, low-hanging fruit. You could have just grabbed it, and everybody would have been happy. It could have been a common. Nobody would have cared. It'd have been great. But thanks for watching, guys. I do appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe. Links down below if you want to help support the channel with a little monetary donations or buy some stuff. As always, till next time, be kind. I hope to see you across from the game table. Maybe throwing down some battles at the pre-release. Word.